Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, let's dive in.
Today, we are strapping in for a deep dive that feels, well, less like pure analysis and maybe more like navigating the pages of a high-stakes, near-future techno-thriller. It's pretty intense stuff.
Absolutely. Our sources thrust us headlong into the established world of Tom Clancy. You know, the universe that gave us The Hunt for Red October executive orders.
Classic stuff.
Right. But we're focusing specifically on the digital frontline, this FBI special division known as NetForce.
And our mission today really is to get into the weeds of this complex, frankly brutal conflict waged against NetForce by this highly unusual, very ruthless organization called Cybernation.
That's it, exactly. This is a war fought simultaneously in cyberspace, in the courtroom, and in the physical world. It's multi-front.
And it's all orchestrated by, well, a single, brilliantly unconventional antagonist.
Yeah.
The lawyer kingpin, Mitchell Townsend Ames. Quite a character.
Oh, definitely. And when we talk about war, I mean, it's a multi-layered assault designed to basically destroy the organization from the inside out.
Right. So we're covering everything. The sophisticated viral threats deployed by their top hacker, the existential shockwaves of a massive $500 million wrongful death lawsuit.
Which is just staggering.
And the truly dramatic and often incredibly violent real-world consequences for the agents and their families. It really gets personal.
It does, and it all culminates in this tactical, almost silent assault on an obsolete nuclear-era bunker hidden deep in the Texas desert.
So what this deep dive really lets us examine is how conflict fundamentally evolves when the battlefield shifts, right?
Yeah, it's no longer just about, military geography or troop movements. It's about legal jurisdiction, digital vulnerabilities, the ability to leverage information itself.
And the sources paint this really vivid picture of just relentless, personalized pressure against the core members of NetForce. You see them forced to question the cost of their service, what they're giving up.
Exactly. So maybe we should jump straight into the people fighting this battle, because their personal lives are absolutely central to the conflict.
Let's do it. All right, so at the top is Alex Michaels. He's the commander of NetForce. And he's not just, leading the war. He's living this perpetual struggle between the demands of national security and his commitment to his family, his wife Tony, and their young son, little Alex.
Yeah, and Michaels' inability to disconnect is really symbolized by one device, his scrambled Virgil.
Ah, the Virgil. Tell us about that.
Well, this isn't just a phone. In this sort of near-future setting, the Virgil is the ultimate pocket electronic command center. It's a secure phone, yes, but also a fax machine, a GPS tracker, a credit card.
Wow, everything in one.
Everything. It's his always-on, secure communication line. And the thing is, if the Virgil rings, it means crisis. A priority one operational emergency that supersedes everything else. Dinner, bedtime, whatever.
That constant electronic tether. It sounds like it's crushing his family life.
It absolutely is. And his wife, Tony, she isn't exactly just waiting at home. She's formidable in her own right.
Right. She's a technical consultant after retiring from the mainstream FBI.
Exactly. Which basically means she's still very much in the loop, still capable of deep-level analysis, but maybe trying to step back a bit.
But she also has this other skill set, silat.
Yes, silat, the Indonesian fighting art. And this is crucial for understanding her preparedness, her mindset. Unlike a lot of Western martial arts that focus on strength or rigid structure, silat emphasizes fluid motion, deception, using an opponent's momentum against them.
So technique over brute force.
Precisely. It allows a smaller, maybe faster person to overcome a larger, stronger attacker. It's very effective.
And this high-level skill is part of their really unconventional home life. Her old teacher, Guru, actually lives with them.
Yeah, and the sources affectionately, but also kind of chillingly, refer to Guru as Granny Death.
Slade chuckle. Granny Death.
Okay. And the nickname isn't just hyperbole. Guru is their live-in babysitter, yes, but she is also Tony's serious training partner. She embodies that skill over strength philosophy. The description is she's capable of dropping Michaels onto concrete 3 times before he can even fully register the first blow.
Whoa. So that level of security is necessary given their jobs, obviously, but it really underscores the constant threat they live under.
Absolutely. And it's understandable then that Tony is wrestling with some massive emotional pressure. The sources show her reflecting constantly on how motherhood has completely supplanted her work focus.
She's worried about sacrificing time with little Alex, time he'll never get back, because of the demands of her career and, well, Michael's career, too.
Exactly. And Michaels himself is seriously contemplating an escape route. He's looking at this really lucrative private sector offer, head of corporate computer security for Aspen International in Colorado.
Big money, less stress.
Far greater salary, significantly reduced stress, and maybe most importantly, a complete removal from the constant threat of litigation and physical violence that comes with federal law enforcement, especially this kind of law enforcement.
It really highlights that core classic dilemma for high-level government operators, doesn't it?
Yep.
When the threat migrates from the office to the bedroom, does the public service obligation outweigh the safety and, peace of mind offered by the corporate world?
It's a very heavy calculation, a really tough choice. Hashtag tag tag B, the general and the gadget, General John Howard.
Okay, next up, let's turn to NetForce's military man, General John Howard. He's facing a very stark physical reminder of his long service.
Yeah, Howard is dealing with hearing loss in his right ear, and the sources are quite specific about how it likely happened.
A blast, like a gunshot.
Probably a concussive blast, maybe a gun going off too close to his unprotected ear during some tactical operation years ago. It's a literal vulnerability built right into his command structure now.
And his visit to the audiologist, Geneva Zuri, it gives us this fantastic glimpse into the advanced state of technology in this Clancy world, right? This isn't your grandfather's hearing aid.
Oh, not at all. It's a technological marvel. He gets fitted with this tiny, custom-fitted electronic augmentation that sits completely invisibly inside the ear canal.
Custom fitted.
Yeah, Zuri had to work hard to match the device to the unique shape of his canal. And its purpose isn't just to amplify sound, it's actually a tactical tool.
Okay, tell us more about the technical function. Specifically, how it addresses this thing called bone conduction.
Right, this is a great piece of technical detail. Normally, when you hear sound, the vibrations pass through the air into your eardrum, sure, but sound also travels through the bones of your skull. That's bone conduction.
Okay.
So if you have one damaged ear, your stronger, healthy ear often transmits the sound internally through that bone structure, effectively, helping out the damaged ear.
Which sounds good, but I guess it could be misleading.
Exactly. It can lead to distorted or confusing auditory data, especially in a high-stress environment like a firefight.
Ah, okay, so the high-tech device ensures accuracy. It filters that out.
Precisely. The device works to mask or isolate that bone conduction pathway in the damaged right ear. It forces the ear to rely purely on the direct electronic input. So he gets crisp, tactically reliable auditory information, eliminating potential confusion.
That's pretty amazing tech. And what's fascinating, and maybe a commentary on NetForce's efficiency, is the cost.
Right. This state-of-the-art device, which would probably retail for thousands, is only a $280 copay under his NetForce insurance. A high-tech fix for a critical operational liability, done with remarkable efficiency.
It shows they take care of their own, at least technologically.
Yeah. Now, General Howard's pressures aren't just operational, they're also deeply familial, specifically regarding his 15-year-old son, Tyrone or Ty.
Right, Tyrone. He's showing signs of being, well, a prodigy, but maybe not in the way his parents expected.
Exactly, in a very unexpected and potentially highly dangerous way. Howard takes him to the Quantico Range, maybe intending it as just a harmless day out, bonding.
But the results are astonishing.
Completely. Tyrone has zero prior experience with firearms. Zero. Yet he picks up this .22 Medusa revolver, which is a high-end target pistol, and demonstrates superior accuracy and speed. It just blows away the master sergeant running the range. Gunny.
Gunny's seen it all, right?
Oh, yeah. Gunny's a seasoned military man, seen thousands of recruits, and he is floored. Tyrone displays this, unnatural aptitude and innate connection to the mechanics of marksmanship. Gunny suggests Tyrone could be a world-class pistolier, maybe even get a full-ride military or competitive shooting scholarship.
Wow. But this talent throws Howard into conflict, doesn't it, with his wife?
Deep conflict. His wife desperately wants Tyrone to pursue medicine, become a doctor. Howard, however, now has to grapple with the reality that his son's natural, maybe instinctive calling is to be a shooter.
That's a terrifying prospect for any parent, I imagine, but especially for a general who knows the high cost of that life.
Exactly. This internal personal dilemma, it heightens the stakes dramatically for what happens later in the story. It really sets something up.
Okay, finally, in this section, let's talk about the operational brain trust. The man who turns data into, well, almost physical reality. Jay Gridley.
Ah, Jay. He might be the ultimate forward thinker in terms of technology, but his actual workspace is anchored by this charmingly antique contradiction.
The desk. Yeah.
Yes. He loves his enormous antique solid cherry desk. It was a wedding gift, funded apparently by a tradition called a money dance, where guests pin cash onto the newlyweds while they dance.
That's a great detail.
It is. It's this beautiful piece of craftsmanship, but hilariously impractical for a cyber specialist. It has zero provisions for cabling, modern office logistics, anything like that.
I love that contrast. It sort of grounds the real world humanity of the team against the abstract digital frontiers they're navigating.
It really does, and Jay's real work is making those digital frontiers understandable, tangible. He uses virtual reality extensively, crafting these highly detailed, immersive simulations to visualize complex real-world problems.
So for him, data streams aren't just numbers on a screen.
Not at all. They are physical narrative environments he can move through.
Okay, let's look at his first simulation example, the Bayou Barataria. What's the purpose of visualizing data traffic as, like, a high-speed swamp chase?
Well, the purpose is speed, resistance, and priority. Jay puts himself in this hot rod airboat, apparently a simple, effective design noted as having been invented by Alexander Graham Bell, which is a neat touch.
Huh. Bell invented the airboat.
According to the source material, yeah. But this one's powered by a massive 560 horsepower V8 engine and has a Teflon-coated hull for speed.
Okay, so the airboat gives him speed, but the swamp, that's the resistance, like network latency.
Exactly. The airboat provides speed, but it also faces resistance in that physical environment, just like data faces latency and traffic bottlenecks on the network.
And he hunts gators.
Right. The gators represent higher priority data packets, critical information that needs to move fast. The slower, non-critical data points are the logs he needs to avoid because they could jam his path.
So by physically navigating this VR bayou, Jay can instinctively understand the data flow, identify choke points, see priority targets, in a way that just staring at spreadsheets could never convey.
Precisely. It makes the abstract concrete for him.
In his other scenario, the medieval castle chapel simulation, that illustrates his methodology for cracking the toughest security measures, right?
Yeah, this is a perfect metaphor for modern network security. The castle represents the heavily fortified bank vault, the core data center, the main firewall. It's designed to be virtually impenetrable if you attack it directly.
So Jay knows that a brute force attack is just a waste of time and resources.
Right. So where does he focus his energy instead?
The weak points,
Yeah.
the soft targets.
Exactly. The humble village chapel located outside the main castle walls. That represents a less protected access point, maybe an online banking app, a balance inquiry portal, perhaps a third-party vendor access point. It's where users enter or retrieve smaller transactional data, less fortified.
And he uses disguises like a friar and even historical tech you mentioned, an autogyro or longbows, to access this chapel in VR. What's that about?
It just illustrates his core approach. Use unexpected tools and low-profile access points to gain entry. Think outside the box. Once he's inside the chapel, he can often find, an underground tunnel or a neglected servant's passage in the simulation that leads back into the main castle.
So by visualizing a modern bank firewall as a medieval fortress, Jay can apply lateral thinking, exploit historical or conceptual security weaknesses to defeat complex digital defenses.
That's it. His capacity to transform abstraction into tactical, physical narrative is arguably NetForce's greatest asset in this fight.
And Jay's work is absolutely crucial because he's protecting NetForce from a threat that is not just technological, but fundamentally philosophical and legal. Which brings us to the architects of that threat, Cybernation.
Right. Cybernation is unlike any conventional enemy NetForce has faced before. It's presented as aiming to become a fully recognized virtual country or maybe a phantom government.
And critically, its leaders are democratically chosen. That gives it a veneer of legitimacy.
It does, but the truly radical part, the part that really challenges the very foundation of statehood, is their core premise about taxation and jurisdiction.
Yeah, explain that. It sounds wild.
It is. Their idea is that citizens of Cybernation can live and work in the real world, let's say the United States, and fully enjoy all the benefits, the freedoms, the laws, the roads, public services, infrastructure, everything provided by their physical country.
Okay.
Without paying taxes to that country. They claim their tax obligations are met only to the virtual state of Cybernation.
Wow. Okay, that's an enormous challenge to, well, everything. Fiscal policy, sovereignty. How do they even try to make this sound legitimate?
Well, they hire Corinna Sky, or Corey. She's a highly effective and very visible lobbyist.
Okay.
Corey's job is basically to lobby Congress and key officials for official recognition of CyberNation's unique status.
And her argument is?
Her argument is essentially that people already get IDs, buy products, conduct complex financial transactions online all the time. It's standard practice now. So she argues obtaining citizenship and paying taxes to an online entity should just be treated as a simple extension of these modern behaviors.
It's an aggressive attempt to normalize the detachment of financial and civic obligation from physical residence.
Absolutely. And if they were ever recognized, the financial damage to the U.S. alone, just from lost tax revenue, would be catastrophic. Not to mention the chaos it would cause in international law.
It would fundamentally erode the social contract that underpins, well, all modern societies.
Exactly. General Howard actually articulates this perfectly later on. They are trying to gain benefits without bearing any of the cost. It's freeloading on a national scale. Hashtag B, the wrongful death lawsuit. $500 million.
So while Corey works on the political legitimacy angle, Mitchell Townsend Ames launches the weapon of financial destruction. This colossal $500 million wrongful death lawsuit against NetForce.
Yeah, $500 million. And this lawsuit stems from a prior engagement, an incident that happened before this story really kicks off.
Right, NetForce had assaulted a Libyan-registered ship, the Bonchans, in international waters.
Correct. And during that assault, several CyberNation employees, guys named Dunlop, Harrington, and Britton, were killed. Now, importantly, NetForce was cleared of wrongdoing by an international maritime court. That court ruled their actions were justifiable self-defense against criminals who fired first.
Wait. Okay, so if an international court already cleared NetForce, how on earth can Ames pursue a $500 million lawsuit in U.S. civil court? What's the legal loophole he's exploiting here?
That's the genius and the brutality of Ames' strategy. He is exploiting the difference between criminal or maritime law and U.S. civil court jurisdiction.
How does that work?
Well, international maritime law operates under a very high bar of evidence, specific rules about self-defense on the high seas. Civil court, particularly in the U.S., and specifically Florida in this case, because the dead men were American citizens from there, has a much lower burden of proof. It's just preponderance of the evidence.
So, more likely than not.
Exactly, and the focus is different. Negligence, violation of civil rights, not necessarily criminal guilt.
So Ames is arguing that while they might have been criminals in international waters, they were still U.S. citizens who retained their civil rights, and NetForce violated those rights through maybe excessive force.
Precisely, and Ames is the perfect man for this job. He's described as this brilliant doctor/lawyer known for routinely winning massive class action suits against major drug companies. He is the ultimate shark. He sees every interaction as a zero-sum game.
And he doesn't want to settle.
No way. He doesn't want to settle. He wants to destroy. He wants to bankrupt NetForce, dismantle it through legal means.
This feeds directly into that larger concept of the litigious society we sometimes hear about, where legal precedent can seem completely divorced from common sense, like criminals suing victims.
That phenomenon is absolutely crucial to understanding Ames's tactical advantage here. The standard scenario people often cite is, a burglar suing a homeowner because he tripped on a rug while escaping with stolen goods and hurt himself.
Right.
Ames's strategy is designed to put that kind of massive psychological pressure on NetForce. He intends to put a human face on the dead CyberNation employees. He'll portray them to the jury not as thugs caught in a criminal act, but as sympathetic figures, maybe young men who just made some bad choices, who had families.
And conversely, casting NetForce, the actual heroes trying to stop them, as the villains.
Yes. He plans to frame Michaels and the NetForce agents as bloodthirsty, jackbooted stormtroopers who operate above the law, relish violence, act with impunity. His aim isn't just the money, it's crippling the organization through psychological, financial, and legal attrition. It's total warfare via the courts.
The immediate reaction from NetForce legal counsel, Thomas Bender, is pretty stark. He warns Michaels about a paper storm.
Bender knows Ames's tactics inside out. He advises Michaels to comply fully with all records requests, move with all deliberate speed, but he warns him, Ames will bury them in paperwork. Thousands upon thousands of subpoenaed documents, emails, phone logs, every single piece of communication will be scrutinized.
So Michaels has to be obsessively careful, even about jokes.
Absolutely. Bender warns him about internal jokes, gallows humor in emails, anything Ames could potentially cherry-pick and read out of context to a teary-eyed jury to prove NetForce's alleged callousness or unprofessionalism. The legal process itself becomes the weapon of harassment.
And Bender's warning extends beyond just the office communications, right? There's more personal threat.
A chilling escalation. Bender points out that during the initial deposition, Ames made a specific point of requesting and confirming Alex Michaels' home address.
Why? Just procedural.
Bender doesn't think so. He sees it as a clear signal. Ames is showing Michaels that this war is migrating from the courtroom directly to his home front. It's intimidation, pure and simple.
Okay, so while this slow, grinding legal process starts strangling NetForce's resources and morale, Cybernation launches the coordinated digital assault. This is led by their hacker, Thumper.
Thumper, yeah. He's a fascinating contrast to the meticulous, calculating Ames. Thumper is described as socially inept, wears a Metallica tank top, rubbery sandals, utterly brilliant at coding, but with zero social filters. He is pure programming focus, hired specifically to launch disruption and cause chaos.
And his plan is this highly coordinated digital assault known as the 6 waves. Can you break down the first 3?
Sure. The first 3 waves are launched simultaneously, designed for maximum disruption and confusion. Wave 1 is the filler clog, basically just designed to overwhelm and jam systems, create latency, block critical communications, just gum things up.
Okay. Wave 2.
Wave 2 is the blanker monitor shutoff. This forces users to frantically jiggle cables, check connections, reboot their machines, wasting critical time and causing frustration.
And wave 3 sounds worse.
Wave 3 is the crash and drive wipe. This is designed to force clean installs, cause massive data loss, really bring operations to a halt, serious damage.
And then, just as people might be recovering, the sophistication escalates.
Dramatically. Days later, he launches 3 variants of those original viruses. They do the same things, clog, blank, crash, but they're rewritten in different codes using different mechanisms.
Why is that variation so crucial?
Because standard security software, which usually works by detecting the signatures of known malware, will often catch that first wave, but it frequently fails to detect the differently coded variants in the second wave because the signatures are new.
Sneaky.
Very. Thumper's objective here is an estimated $2–3 billion in damages and downtime globally. He's aiming big.
And Jay Gridley, NetForce's tech wizard, is naturally the one who spots the most terrifying piece of malware in this attack: the trinary virus. We probably need to spend a moment unpacking this concept, because it sounds like a huge technical leap.
It really is. Most advanced viruses at the time were maybe binary murders. They'd split into 2 parts to hide themselves in legitimate data packets during transmission, then reassemble at the other end to attack.
Okay, so 2 parts. But trinary means?
Trinary means it splits into 3 innocuous parts.
How does splitting into 3 help it bypass security any better than splitting into 2? Where's the blind spot it's exploiting?
It exploits the way data integrity checks work on the network. See, when data is transmitted across the internet, transmission errors are actually pretty common. Little glitches happen all the time, so data is buffered and checked constantly to correct these errors.
Right.
Security software usually ignores the brief buffers where these transmission errors are being corrected because it assumes those segments are just noise or legitimate packet fragments being fixed. It doesn't scan them deeply. A trinary virus manages to hide its 3 tiny fragments within these brief, unscrutinized error buffers. Splitting into 3 instead of 2 makes each fragment so minuscule and seemingly insignificant that they just read as standard digital noise, not malicious code. They slip right past the scanners.
So the 3 fragments travel through these noisy, sort of unobserved back channels of the network, hiding in plain sight within the error correction process, and then
they reassemble at the destination. They bypass the destination's security software because they arrived as seemingly clean fragments, coalescing only upon arrival to launch their attack, in this case, the blanker attack, shutting down the monitor.
Wow, that's incredibly difficult to track, let alone stop.
Extremely difficult. But Jay Gridley, being Jay Gridley, finds a countermeasure.
Using his internal workshop program, the one he built as a kid.
Yeah, he describes it with some humor. Apparently, he even programmed summoned demons in it to cringe when he said his name back in his youthful coding days. But it's a highly updated and very efficient virus construction kit, essentially.
So what does he do with it? Fight fire with fire?
Sort of, but benignly. He crafts a benign countervirus. This countervirus is designed cleverly to piggyback on the paths taken by Thumper's viruses. It essentially uses the trinary virus's own stealth highway to travel the globe.
But Jay's virus doesn't cause damage.
No, its only function is to map the spread and scope of the attack. It reports back, giving NetForce a global view of the infection that Thumper thought was completely invisible. He turns Thumper's own stealth against him. ##B, tracing the money and the bribe.
Jay's digital detective work isn't just limited to malware, though. He also starts following the money trail, using wire transfers originating from Cybernation to try and locate a deeper, maybe more insidious threat: political corruption.
Right. And this is where Jay applies some really high-level conceptual thinking to what looks like mundane data. He consciously uses the principle found in that Edgar Allan Poe short story, The Purloined Letter.
The idea of hiding something in plain sight.
Exactly. How does that translate to the modern network? Well, Jay figures if you really want to hide data, you don't bury it deep in heavy encryption where everyone is looking for encrypted traffic.
So where do you hide it?
You hide it in the high-volume, slow sections of the net, the areas that are usually unobserved or disregarded precisely because no one suspects anything critical or sensitive, would be traversing such slow. Jay is immediately convinced this isn't some legitimate payment for consulting services or anything like that. This has to be a bribe.
The significance of that is just huge. Cybernation isn't just lobbying Congress with Corey Sky. They are actively attempting to influence the highest judicial body in the United States.
It strongly suggests they're playing a very long game, likely preparing for future legal challenges regarding their status as a virtual country, trying to stack the deck in their favor at the highest level.
It confirms that the war is being fought on all three fronts simultaneously: the digital front with Thumper, the legal front with Ames, and now the political and judicial front with this bribe.
Exactly. And this systemic corruption, this attempt to undermine the very institutions of the country they benefit from, it perfectly confirms General Howard's philosophical stance against Cybernation's core premise. ###C, the philosopher general, Tanstaffel.
Which brings us neatly to that debate General Howard has with his son Tyrone, the one concerning the true nature of value and freedom, centering on that acronym, Tanstaffel.
Right. There ain't no such thing as a free lunch.
Yeah.
It was originally popularized by the science fiction writer Robert A. Heinlein, but it's become a core concept in economics and particularly libertarian thought.
And the basic idea is,
It states that everything has a cost. Everything must be paid for somehow, somewhere, either by the individual directly or by others through taxes or subsidies, or even by the environment through resource depletion. There is always a hidden cost. Nothing is truly free.
but Tyrone, the 15-year-old idealist, he questions this, right? He asks if regulation is always bad.
Yeah, he brings up a hypothetical example. What if someone discovers a cure for cancer but then charges, say, $100,000 for it? He's questioning the morality of profiting massively from something that could save lives. Profit versus humanitarian good.
It's a fair question from a teenager. How does Howard, the general, respond?
Howard responds by shifting the focus from immediate morality to long-term sustainability and, crucially, innovation. He argues that talent, risk, and skill must be rewarded commensurate with the value they provide. Otherwise, innovation dies. If you take away the profit motive, the potential reward for the decade or more of incredibly hard work and investment it took to cure cancer, then why would a brilliant mind or a company spend 20 years and billions of dollars developing that cure in the first place? Especially if the state or the market immediately seizes that knowledge and offers it for free. The incentive disappears.
So he's connecting the protection of intellectual property, the knowledge, directly to the incentive to create it.
Exactly. He uses a more grounded example, too. Think about metal benders, engineers, companies that build things. They need blueprints, knowledge, expertise. If they invest heavily in a country, maybe build a factory, and then that country immediately nationalizes their assets or steals their intellectual property.
They won't invest there again.
Never again. That investment stops immediately. Future innovation in that place is crippled.
And this whole philosophical debate serves as the perfect lens through which to view Cybernation's activities, their entire premise.
Howard drives the point home forcefully. Cybernation's premise is theft. What they offer their citizens for free, the use of U.S. laws, roads, infrastructure, national defense, everything, was already paid for. Paid for by the taxes, the labor, the risks, and the investment of others, the citizens of the physical nation.
Their virtual state is entirely reliant on stealing the intellectual and physical capital of established nations.
That's Howard's conclusion. And he concludes that in this modern conflict, knowledge, whether it's the cure for cancer, the software code for a virus, or, as we'll see, the blueprint for a hidden bunker, is far more valuable than hardware. And that knowledge must be protected or created and rewarded, otherwise the ability to innovate, to progress, just disappears.
Okay, so if Mitchell Ames is the calculating legal and financial brain behind Cybernation's assault, then Junior Boudreau is the physical weapon. He's described as this terrifying combination of, like, cold professionalism and almost bloodthirsty vanity.
Yeah, Junior is a hired killer and blackmailer, and he's defined by his love for the fight, the confrontation itself. He explicitly describes combat as the ultimate rush, saying it's superior to any addiction, better than sex or drugs.
That's disturbing.
It is. His profile includes this raucous, sort of crow-like laugh, but also extreme vanity when it comes to his tools and his methods. He takes immense pride in his gear.
And he doesn't use standard military-issue weapons, right? He's very specific.
Very specific. He exclusively uses two customized snub-nose .22 Ruger revolvers. The sources describe them almost lovingly, saying they're built like bank vaults, heavy, incredibly reliable, perfectly maintained, and he carries them in custom-made Orsehide holsters.
Everything tailored.
Yeah.
And his ammunition choice is just as specific.
Absolutely. He uses highly customized, individually weighed CCI Minimag Solens, only 51 grains, chosen specifically for optimal reliability and accuracy in those particular snub-nose barrels.
And he's careful about forensics, ballistics.
Obsessively careful. To ensure he's untraceable by ballistics, he constantly rotates the barrels on his revolvers between jobs, and he meticulously disposes of all spent ammunition. No brass left behind. He's thorough, professional in his craft, and terrifyingly detail-oriented.
His operational tactics, his practice routine, it's designed for immediate lethality at very close range.
Exactly. He spends his time practicing rapid, simultaneous double taps on targets set at precisely 7 yards.
By 7 yards.
That's a critical distance. FBI metrics apparently peg 7 yards as the average distance for a real-world gunfight to occur, so he trains for the most likely scenario.
In his aim point.
He aims for the head or the mouth, what the source calls a binocular hit, basically targeting the central processing unit. The goal is instant, non-survivable incapacitation. He doesn't want a fair fight. He wants a clean, rapid kill. Maximum efficiency, minimum risk to himself. #tag beat. The blackmail operation.
Okay, so Junior's initial utility for Ames wasn't murder, it was pure blackmail, right? Targeting high-value political opponents of cybercrime. Senator Solly Brecher was apparently his first political target.
That's right. Brecher was set up using a woman named Joan. The plan involved Junior kicking in the hotel room door, staging this loud confrontation where he falsely identified Joan as being only 14 years old.
Creating instant scandal.
Instant scandal. And he delivered his lines with a thick, maybe exaggerated Cajun accent, calculated to maximize the sense of intimidation and illegality, make it seem really sleazy and dangerous.
And Ames later called that move overkill, which is a really chilling assessment coming from a guy like Ames.
It really is. Ames apparently realized afterwards that any suggestion of impropriety, regardless of the woman's actual age or the legal validity of the setup, would have been absolutely fatal to a married politician's career and family life. The threat didn't need to be legally prosecutable in a criminal court. It just needed to destroy his public standing and make him compliant.
He used a slightly different, maybe cleaner approach for Congressman Wentworth, another key opponent of Cybernation.
Yeah, Wentworth was compromised with simple, explicit X-rated photos. Junior hid in a closet in a motel room with a digital camera, captured the evidence while Wentworth was with Joan, and Ames later just emailed the photos to Wentworth as leverage.
Swift, clinical, and presumably very effective at neutralizing political opposition without needing a messy confrontation.
Exactly. But the operation rapidly escalated from just blackmail to actual murder.
What happened with Wentworth?
Wentworth apparently confronted Junior out in the Mojave Desert. Maybe he thought he could appeal to the killer's professionalism, reason with him, buy him off. But Junior's need for that rush, that confrontation, was apparently too great.
So Junior killed him.
Yes. Junior shatters the car window with the butt of his gun, shoots Wentworth, and then expertly stages the whole scene to look like a desperate suicide. Makes it look like Wentworth shot himself out in the desert. #C. The murder escalation.
This is where Junior's behavior seems to cross a line, doesn't it? From professional killer working on orders to, well, something more like a serial murderer, driven by pure adrenaline. He starts killing law enforcement officers during routine stops.
It's terrifying and seemingly completely unnecessary for his mission. He murders a Baltimore cop and then later an Atlanta motorcycle patrolman during simple random traffic stops, purely for the thrill of it.
Why?
The source suggests he wants that one-on-one mano encounter. It's like a self-test for him, an act of extreme narcissism where he sees himself as proving his superiority against the organized forces of law and order. He's testing his skills, his nerve.
He thinks he's golden, as long as the police believe these are just random, maybe gang-related hits not connected.
That's his calculation. He knows that a clear pattern, multiple police officers killed across state lines by two distinctive .22 rounds to the head, will eventually trigger a massive nationwide pattern-based hunt by the FBI and everyone else. He is knowingly dancing right on that line, fueled by the adrenaline of getting away with it each time.
This murder spree is incredibly reckless, though. And it's ultimately what brings NetForce's full attention squarely onto the physical threat, not just the legal and cyber ones.
Absolutely. His overconfidence, coupled with Ames's growing paranoia about exposure, leads directly to the incident in Atlanta.
The Atlanta trap.
Right. Ames, who is still unaware of the cop murders but is getting very concerned about the political exposure from the blackmail operations, especially Joan, orders Junior to eliminate Joan. She's now seen as a primary security risk, a loose end.
So Junior tracks her down.
Yeah, he tracks her to a place called the Peach Pit, which is described as a gray Ghost Riders motorcycle club bar in Atlanta. A pretty rough place.
And Junior tries to maintain cover. He doesn't just walk in shooting.
No, he tries to be clever. He uses three large bikers guys named Buck, Dog, and Spawn as a kind of human shield, blending in with them near the door, but Joan spots him anyway.
And then chaos.
Total chaos. Joan's sister, Darla, screams out a warning. This triggers Junior's escape plan. He immediately fires both his revolvers dry. That's 12 shots, straight up into the ceiling.
A distraction.
Pure auditory distraction. It ensures all the bikers, all the patrons, everyone is focused on the noise, the confusion, the plaster falling down, not on him slipping out the door. He flees in a generic rental car, counting on the fact that any witnesses, or even the cops arriving later, would assume a killer escaping a biker bar like the Peach Pit would be on a motorcycle, not in a boring sedan.
It's an incredibly narrow escape. And it solidifies how dangerous he is, but also how close the net is getting. The police are starting to tie the ballistic pattern together, and Junior is now squarely on the radar of federal agents, including NetForce.
So that trail of blood, the blackmail attempts, the specific .22 caliber killings, the rental cars, it finally allows NetForce to connect the seemingly disparate parts of this whole conflict.
And it's Jay Gridley again, right? Using his relentless data tracing, he connects Junior Boudreau's fingerprints and rental car IDs directly back to the mastermind, Mitchell Ames. How does he make that final link?
Through the one thing Ames, the meticulous lawyer, forgot to be meticulous about, his favorite hobby: combat shooting. Jay discovers shared membership records between Junior Boudreau and Mitchell Townsend Ames at multiple high-end combat shooting ranges.
No way.
Yes. Ames, the careful lawyer who buried NetForce in subpoenas and hid money transfers in slow data streams, was linked directly to his personal assassin through recreational target practice. It was a single, fatal slip-up in operational security.
Ames must have panicked when he realized NetForce was closing in on Junior and therefore on him.
Completely panicked.
Yeah.
Knowing NetForce is all over Junior's trail, he escalates the war to the absolute ultimate level. He makes a call.
What does he do?
He calls Junior and orders the kidnapping of Alex Michaels' young son, little Alex.
Oh my God.
Yeah. He offers Junior a colossal $5 million payoff if he completes the job and then leaves the country immediately afterwards. Ames intends to use the child as leverage to force Michaels to drop the investigation, end the lawsuit immediately, and probably eliminate Michaels himself.
And he pushes Junior to kill Tony Michaels, too.
Explicitly. He tells Junior to kill Tony, saying, chillingly, something like, "Once you get past the first, they're all the same, right?" Ames, the brilliant lawyer, has fully transitioned here. He's no longer just a legal adversary. He's a desperate criminal kingpin, ordering the murder of federal agents and the kidnapping of a child. All bets are off. Hashtag #BUFSB, the failed hit, and Tyrone's heroism. Now, Michaels had actually sensed trouble brewing the night before the scheduled hit was supposed to happen.
How?
Corinna Skye, the Cybernation lobbyist, had tried to lure him to her hotel room, room 316, late at night, instead of meeting in a public space as they usually did.
That felt wrong to him.
Absolutely. Michaels declined the meeting. His tactical intuition, honed by years of experience, was screaming, "Set up!" He knew something was off, so he's already on heightened alert.
However, despite his awareness, the Michaels home defense structure was temporarily compromised right when Junior was coming.
Yeah, talk about bad timing. Guru, the formidable silent master, the granny death babysitter, had to leave abruptly. She flew to Arizona because her great-grandson was seriously sick with pneumonia.
So the expert bodyguard is gone.
Gone. This creates the vulnerability that Junior needs, but it also, by sheer chance, creates the opportunity for this incredible intervention. General Howard, knowing the danger Michaels was in and maybe feeling responsible, hires his own son, Tyrone, the shooting prodigy. as the temporary, last-minute babysitter for little Alex.
Wow, so Tyrone is there when Junior attacks.
He is. The stage is set for this unbelievable confrontation. Junior Boudreaux kicks in the door to the Michaels home, revolvers drawn, focused entirely on getting to Tony and the child.
And Tyrone, untrained in combat.
Tyrone reacts purely on instinct and the muscle memory he acquired from all that target practice at Quantico. He's armed only with his .22 Medusa target pistol. Remember, the gun meant for scholarship competition, for precise, non-lethal sport shooting.
But he uses it.
Despite being completely untrained in real combat, despite the terror of the situation, Tyrone does exactly what his hours of practice taught him. Rapid, accurate fire under pressure. He shoots the seasoned killer, Junior Boudreaux, instantly in the forehead. Kills him instantly. Drops him right there in the bedroom doorway.
Unbelievable.
It's the ultimate irony, isn't it? And the payoff for General Howard's internal conflict. The very natural aptitude his wife feared Tyrone's capacity to be a shooter ends up saving the lives of Alex Michaels, Tony Michaels, and little Alex.
Alex and Tony rush in.
They rush into the room to find Junior's body sprawled on the floor. The .22 target pistol, in the hands of someone with innate accuracy, proved instantly superior to the killer's heavily customized weapons, simply because the user was more instinctively accurate under pressure. #C, the Odessa bunker assault.
Okay, so with his assassin dead, Ames knows his time is completely up. He sees police surveillance outside his Long Island office.
Right, likely tipped off by Tony and Jay's sting operation that finally nabbed the hacker, Thumper.
And Ames flees. He runs to his ultimate hideout in Texas.
Yeah, this is a classic Clancy kind of setting, an obsolete but bomb-proof military operations center located near Odessa, Texas. It was built way back in the mid-1950s, a relic of the Cold War.
Not Cheyenne Mountain, but similar idea.
Similar idea, yeah. Designed to withstand a nuclear blast, house maybe 200 people underground for 6 months, thick concrete walls, massive generators, huge institutional kitchens, the works. Self-contained.
Bomb-proof, yes, but its age becomes its single biggest vulnerability. And who discovers this?
Of course, it's Jay Gridley again.
Naturally. How does he find the weakness?
Jay uses his digital skills to locate the bunker's original blueprints and, crucially, its sales records from when the military decommissioned it. He finds them hidden away in some digital bank vault simulation he creates, relying on that bureaucratic maxim that Uncle Sam always keeps a record of income-generating real estate. Someone sold it, someone bought it, there's a paper trail somewhere.
And the blueprints, decades old, give NetForce a complete internal map.
A complete internal map. It renders the bunker's thick, bomb-proof walls effectively useless because they know the layout, the ventilation shafts, the entry points, the potential weaknesses.
So the tactical operation is organized immediately. General Howard leads it.
Yes, and Alex Michaels, despite technically being the primary victim in the kidnapping plot, refuses to sit this critical moment out. He insists on joining the small unit going in. It's personal now.
And they devise a pretty sophisticated infiltration plan, starting with a distraction.
A very clever one. They drive a truck up to the northern entrance of the bunker complex and detonate a shaped charge against it. The explosion isn't really meant to breach the wall. It's designed purely to draw Ames's attention, his surveillance cameras, and any internal security focus he might have to the opposite side of the complex from where they plan to enter.
Misdirection. Meanwhile, the real infiltration happens in the south. And this is another area where the technical detail and the sources is fantastic.
It really is. Howard, Michaels, Julio Fernandez, Howard's trusted operative, and 2 other troopers infiltrate silently using these specially fitted, stealth-geared Segway scooters.
Segways.
Not the kind you see tourists riding around on. These are heavily modified.
Mm-hmm.
They're sheathed in noise-dampening polycarb fiber. They have increased battery range for the mission. They ensure almost completely silent operation. And they're using LOSIR comms.
LOSIR.
Line-of-sight infrared communications. Totally secure, uninterceptable as long as they maintain line of sight. So they glide silently up to the vulnerable southern perimeter while Ames is hopefully looking north.
And they use the original design flaws, the things noted in those 1950s blueprints Jay found, to confirm Ames is actually inside.
Exactly. It's a brilliant little detail. They detect a simple, decades-old technical failure indication. A warning light or signal related to a clogged air filter, likely triggered by the system running continuously now that Ames is hiding out inside.
A tiny detail, but thanks to Jay's recovered blueprints, it confirms Ames's presence and maybe even helps pinpoint his approximate location within the bunker.
Precisely, they know he's in there.
The final confrontation, then, is quick and brutal.
Very. They track him down and corner Ames, who is hiding, believe it or not, in the walk-in refrigerator of the large institutional kitchen, maybe desperately hoping the thick insulation will provide some extra protection from bullets.
A desperate move.
Extremely. Ames attempts a desperate, maybe half-hearted surrender, but then he pulls his own gun, tries to shoot his way out, actually firing first.
But he's outnumbered and outgunned.
Completely. He manages to wound Michaels in the leg, but he is immediately neutralized and killed by the return fire from Howard, Julio, and the rest of the tactical team. The lawyer kingpin, the man who waged war using the legal system and cyber attacks, ultimately dies in a dirty, close-quarters physical exchange of gunfire, cornered like an animal in a cold relic of the past. #outro.
Wow. What a profound and visceral end to the whole Cybernation war. It just collapses so quickly once Ames is gone.
What's fascinating here is how quickly the resolution follows the neutralization of Mitchell, Townsend, Ames. It's almost instantaneous.
Yeah, the entire threat structure just collapses immediately, doesn't it?
Completely. With Ames dead and Cybernation now inextricably linked not just to the lawsuit, but to murder, blackmail, bribery, especially those payments Jay found going to the Supreme Court clerk. Their legal standing, their political lobbying efforts, their whole philosophical premise, it all instantly dissolves. The massive civil lawsuit just vanishes. Poof.
And the personal resolutions for the NetForce team follow just as fast. It really shows the emotional gravity that this whole conflict carried for them. General Howard retires.
He does. He accepts that lucrative private sector job he was probably offered earlier, something involving security and compliance. He notes with palpable relief that he'll be dealing with a different class of people, not necessarily better, but probably less dangerous.
A fair assessment.
Yeah.
And he even manages to bring his trusted operative, Julio Fernandez, with him.
Yeah, loyalty there. And Alex Michaels confirms his decision too, the one he was wrestling with earlier. He's choosing family over the career pressure.
He and Tony are leaving the constant pressure cooker of Washington, D.C. They're taking that job out in Colorado at Aspen International.
They choose safety, maybe normalcy, certainly reduce stress. It confirms that the constant litigation, the legal harassment, and ultimately the direct threat to their son was just too high a price to pay for public service, at least in that specific role.
This entire saga really brings us back to the heart of that Howard-Tyrone discussion, doesn't it? The idea of knowledge as power, but also as risk. So what does this all mean?
Well, I think the conflict showed that knowledge was absolutely everything. It was the currency of Cybernation. Their entire premise was based on exploiting existing systems and arguably stolen intellectual property. It was the critical weakness of Ames J's ability to find those obsolete bunker blueprints and the forgotten tax records linking him to Junior. And ultimately, knowledge was the ultimate weapon of NetForce. J's data tracing, Tony's specialized silent training providing home defense, and even Tyrone's unconsciously absorbed target practice knowledge. The idea of the virtual state, the location of the hidden hideout, the mechanism of the trinary virus. It was all about knowledge, information, code, and all of it proved far more valuable, more decisive than the physical hardware they operated on or the guns they carried.
So if we look at the structure of the conflict itself, we saw the slow, meticulous, and incredibly expensive nature of the government response. You know, the legal battles, getting warrants, needing complex, stealth-geared Segway assaults just to get inside a building.
The institutional process.
Versus the immediate, relatively cheap, and devastatingly effective nature of personalized, focused violence epitomized by Junior Boudreau's rapid, accurate double taps at 7 yards. One man, two small guns, causing immense damage and fear very quickly.
Yeah, the institutional system, our legal system, our government structures, they're designed, ideally, to be slow, deliberate, fair, to protect rights. But that very slowness, that deliberateness, can be exploited, sometimes to the point of existential failure, by a ruthless, intelligent antagonist like Ames, who understands how to manipulate the system's own rules against it.
It creates a real asymmetry.
A huge asymmetry. So maybe the final provocative thought we leave you with is this. In a world increasingly governed by vast, complex legal, financial, and digital systems, which method of attack, the slow, institutionalized attempt at dismantlement through courts and procedures, or the fast, surgical, and focused act of violence, actually holds the most immediate and terrifying power over its targets?
It's a fundamental tension, isn't it, between law enforcement, between process and expediency.
It is, and it's definitely something to consider as you navigate your own highly interconnected, complex world today. Which approach ultimately gets results, for better or for worse?